Hey guys, welcome back to the All Blue. My first time back in Tokyo in about a year recording, and first and foremost, we'll address the elephant in the room. Jonas, you're looking a little bit white today. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I didn't get much tanning done this summer, but just wait till end of summer. I'll look like normal.
Yeah. Well, so today we have Jackson Huang because Jonas couldn't make it today, but Jackson, national champion, two-time world's representative, very powerful player in North America. So he'll keep the North American side, the North American seed, I should say, warm. Thank you for joining us today. And Ravoy, how are you doing?
Doing good. Very happy to have Jackson here, our first guest on the Obu, and a fantastic player. So I can't wait to honestly dig in both into the questions and into the actual topic of the podcast.
Hi, my name is iKailaKai, and these beautiful cards, they need a home. And the best thing for these amazing cards is of course going to be the precious SleeveChief deck box. The new Soulfire edition of a limited drop. There's really not that many of these in stock, but this deck box is going to be able to hold up to any card that you have in your collection. I cannot stress enough how good in quality SleeveChief's products are, and this deck box is so beautiful that the camera footage just cannot do it any justice. For this beautiful deck box, as well as all of your TCG supply needs, make sure to go to my link in the description below and use Kai5 at checkout for the best discounts on the best products in the market. Thank you to SleeveChief for sponsoring this video, and let's get into the podcast. Before we jump into all of that stuff, I do want to mention that Hervoye won the Treasure Cup, I believe. Was it? Yeah, that was just the other day in, I have no idea how to pronounce that city.
Bielefeld.
Bielefeld. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Green Blue Luffy, continuing the streak of Croatian dominance alongside Luka as well. So congratulations there. And Jackson, on the All Blue, we start the podcast with a question, usually from the viewers, but because you're here, I thought of a question to ask you guys. And in particular, I think that Hervoye is known to have some insane tech cards and crazy cooking. And Jackson, you're known to famously be a very good player that also has a job. So I wanted to ask you two players, how do you practice in this game to stay on top of everyone else?
Yeah, I can go first. It's definitely very challenging with like a regular 9 to 5, so that's like 8 hours a day that I not only can't spend playing the game, but also like I have to think of my job outside of work as well. So I had to try to be like really efficient with my time. So one of the things that's like very time consuming to me that I hate on miss out on is like going to locals. Just because like there's a travel time, there's a time between rounds. So if you spend like maybe 4 hours at locals, you may be getting 3 tournament games in. So that's one of the things I had to cut out just to be efficient on time. And then other than that, one of the things that I had to cut out was like playing myself. Just this is like I think I'm notorious for like wanting to watch a lot of gameplay, just because I can watch like 2 times speed or do whatever, and it's very easy to like screenshot and pinpoint specific moments and share it to my friends. Like, hey, what would you do here? Or like, was this a right play? That kind of thing. So yeah, just trying to be as efficient with my times as possible, just because I have so little of it.
I mean, there's definitely some overlaps in what my answer is going to be with Jackson's. I just kept thinking of the first Worlds, where Jackson told me he quit his job the day before Worlds, like he just full committed and got third. And I always thought that was like, oh man, this guy is all in. I only have a part-time job. Like I'm pretty sure most people don't know this, but I work for the Croatian local game store Magic Omens. I just organize anything related to events and distribution of several card games that I have interest in. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes actually very little of my time, but technically still a job on paper, which does take some time and takes away from some of my testing. But as a consequence, I'm usually present for most of the locals just because why not? I often run them. But as time went on, I stopped playing the locals for similar reasons as Jackson's. Like the number of games you can get in, like quality games while playing locals, is just not very high. Even at very strong locals, you're still going to have a lot of rounds which are against unpracticed players or players playing unserious decks. Or like, okay, that's the wrong way to put it, because locals are a place where you're supposed to try out new strategies and stuff. But if you're wanting to prepare for regionals and like higher level events, then you definitely like need to focus your practice a lot more. Unless you intend to like grind during your entire free time, then do whatever you please, right? But I do also prefer being very efficient with my practice, because there's other stuff in the day I want to do that is not related to TCGs. And how I practice, it's actually, again, similar to Jackson. I watch a lot more gameplay than I necessarily play, especially early on in the formats. I get criticized a lot because of that within my team. But I mean, it's an approach that always worked for me, like from a theory crafting perspective, both like just thinking about how the games progress in my head and playing against myself. Again, as Jackson mentioned, I know Sammy from Canada also has a similar approach. Like the point is, you have to find whatever works for you and kind of stick to it. But also, part of the reason that I end up trying all the wacky cards is because I practice like that. Because I think about all these scenarios that can occur. I'm like, okay, this card could definitely fit in here. And I think you kind of unfairly excluded Jackson from that description as well, because I think he famously kind of like, I don't remember the exact number, but a lot of one-offs in his Black Yellow Luffy when he won the Nationals.
It was only 5.
And
it was
also,
nothing compared to Sammy this weekend.
like in OP03, so this weekend I won a Treasure Cup in Bielefeld. And in OP03, I also won a regional in Bielefeld with Zoro. And at the time, I ran some funky cards, which like not a lot of people did. And another thing a lot of people didn't do with Zoro back then was reduce the number of Rush Zoro, because it was seen as such a key card. And I remember, like, I wanted to do it, but I was like kind of unsure about it. It's like such a drastic decision because everybody sees it as a must-have card. But then I saw like Jackson's list somewhere. Actually, I think I just subscribed to his Patreon.
Yeah, it's the Patreon.
Yeah. And he was talking about cutting down Zoros. I'm like, okay, this guy gets it. And it was kind of the approval and what kind of what encouraged me to actually stick to my process and play what I wanted. And then the result was like a very clean 15-0 victory of the regional. So I think it goes way back, actually, the similarities in both playstyle and practice. So yeah, this ended up being a rather long widen.
Yeah, I think I won the Treasure Cup before you won the week after with like a very similar list too. So it was like the timing was like perfect.
Yeah. So it ended up being a long-winded answer, but I think you got two guests with very similar approaches to the game answering the question.
Yeah, I very much appreciate it. It definitely puts into perspective because, I mean, I finally have a little bit more time now, so I need to figure out what to do with all this time. And I realize probably I don't watch enough content at all. I generally, maybe I'll watch some like Japanese tournament games and whatnot, but a lot of the times, the second that I see one misplay, I'm like, oh, bad quality game, and then click off the video, which maybe you guys do this as well, but I think a lot of the times you have to filter out some of the lower quality games to actually figure out some interesting scenarios. But, you know, when you find some of those weird games where just like random cards can pop off, then you start to see potential in lots of deck building as well. You know, Jackson, the one of King, and Dervoye, in my eyes at the very least, the man who's not afraid to cut anything from the deck. Well, thank you very much.
The description. Uncompromising deck builder, some would say.
Yeah, and so thank you very much for your answers, and let's just, I guess, start talking about the new sets that are coming out now. The ST31 through 36. There is Red Nika. There's technically Green Zoro, but we'll talk about how viable Green Zoro may actually be. Blue Kuzan, Purple Katakuri, Red Black Sable, as well as Yellow Kid, that are all getting buffs. But interestingly, one of the nice things that they've done in this set is that they've buffed a lot of other leaders as well, peripherally. So I don't even know where to start with this, but Jackson, because you are our guest today, which color do you want to start with, maybe?
I think we can start with the most obvious one, which is the green deck. The so-called like Zoro upgrade, but it ends up probably being a Mihawk upgrade.
Yeah, it's a little
some of the cards are like, it seems like it could be for Zoro, but it's like very clearly for Mihawk. Like the 6-cost Mihawk itself, like even though it's in the Zoro starter deck, Zoro doesn't have a lot of ways of resting your own characters on your turn, but Mihawk's leader effect is like perfect for this. So it just seemed like this is obviously a Mihawk leader upgrade rather than a Zoro upgrade.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the 6-cost Dracula Mihawk, 6-cost 7,000. Your turn, when this character becomes rested, draw 1 card and trash 1 card from your hand. And on play, if your leader has the slash attribute, play 1 Perona or slash attribute character with a cost of 5 or less from your hand. So yeah, that first part of the leader effect basically feels like it's made for Mihawk, of course, but you know, you can use it in other decks as well, just when you're attacking, in particular Zoro Sanji as well. Another deck that may actually be able to use this deck or this card pretty well, being able to play out slash characters. Ervoy, you're nodding your head a little bit. You want to talk about this card in regards to Mihawk or Zoro Sanji, your beloved?
Of course. Also, I want to say, if we had Jonas here, he would never have a start with a green color. Never. Like, he played Nami this weekend, and he hates green. But yeah, for me, this is the most exciting color. Maybe it wouldn't be my obvious first choice to discuss, but definitely the most exciting for me, because I'm not that big of a fan of Mihawk, but I'm a big fan of Zoro Sanji, and this card is insane. It's like, it kind of closes the gap of what I was saying Zoro Sanji has to Green Blue Luffy, which is the ability to swarm multiple bodies, because you get a similar number of swings with those phantom attacks from the leader ability, but if your one body gets incapacitated, you're losing 2 attacks if it's your only body, whereas Goofy never has that weakness. And this card, just for any green slash deck, feeling 2 bodies is strong, like 6-7, and play out the 5 cost, which is like very unrestricted. It can be any slash or Perona. It's just so much value because you get the effect of the 5 cost, and then this card still has a lingering effect which produces value. So I think, like, for Zoro Sanji, it opens up a lot of possibilities, which I need to test. But for Mihawk, it's obviously very strong. Notably, the 5 cost Perona, I think, is going to be the premium all target, but there's the new Odin that we will get to. That I expect this card to just propel every green slash deck a little bit, because 2 bodies of 6k or 7k on turn 3 go ballistic usually.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think also, because this is the Green Zoro start deck, we should mention how this card combos well with Green Zoro as well. You can play the 5-cost Tashigi off this card, which I think is one of the more intended ways to use this card. Playing the 5-cost Tashigi, play 2 7,000 power characters, attach 3 Dong to your leader, swing 8-8. It's not bad, but it definitely does seem like a lot of decks can use this card better. It does seem like one of those cards that maybe like in the future, it'll just be one that's like, if your leader can use slash, then you auto default put in 5 of these or 4 of these and figure out what to do with the rest of your deck. Yeah. Still though, let's talk about one of the targets that Roy just mentioned in that 5-cost Olden. 5-cost, 6,000 power, a Land of Wano and Kozaki clan. A character with 1,000 counter, which on play draws 1 card, and up to one of your opponent's characters with an original cost of 6 or less cannot be rested until the end of the opponent's next end phase. How do you feel about this card in the context of all of the other premier green 5 costs that we have in the game, Jackson?
Yeah, so one of the things Bandai does, and I'm sure all TCG companies do, is like when they release new cards, it's usually catered to counter like whatever's strong in the meta right now. So this Odin is like very clearly meant to handle like 6 cost Enel, because Enel is still really good. Even the rest of the cards you can look at, they're like very catered towards making sure Enel doesn't become a mainstay in the next meta as well. But yeah, it's just a very good stat line. It's playable off Mihawk. I think it's playable off like 6-cost Law as well. And it's just slash characters, so it's very useful to like be searched by Perona. And then the draw 1 is always nice. But yeah, it just seems like an overall like we want Purple Enel to stop being good. So here are some cards to help beat it.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
It's not good.
I mean, the rest of the cards are also really good too, because the other way you beat it is also like get rid of your 1 cost. So you have your own 1 cost, like the Kinemon or the Zoro, which is like a Shura that rests, and also you have the Odin, which can help clear the board at 1 cost. So you can at least get rid of some of the free 6k attacks that Purple Enel can get. But like, what do you guys think on non-Enel matchups? Like, how do these cards help against like the other mainstays like UG or like Teach?
I mean, so particularly about the Olden, it does feel like it's purely an NL hate card. So, against decks like Blue Yellow Nami and stuff, where the characters are just gonna be 7,000 power or 7 cost or higher very early on, this sort of card ends up not being very helpful just because it's original cost, especially. Even when compared to like other 5 costs that exist, like it does feel a little bit lacking, though it does have that 1 draw if you can't manage to get it on the board early on. But still, like right now in the context of the meta, you have Purple NL, you have Teach, which although his character, his 6-cost Shiryu becomes 7 cost on the opponent's turn because it's its original cost, still bullies that card a bit. So I think at least within the current meta, this card seems very powerful. But I wouldn't say it's as omnipresent or as Mihawk would be maybe in the future.
I think design-wise, there are some trade-offs when creating the card, because this has some resemblances to the EBO 3 Bonnie or EBO 4, I don't remember which one it was, which locked an 8 cost and gave you back a Dawn. But this draws a card, and that's usually way, way, way better, because you're not losing a card from hand, and you're also locking a body. The fact it targets original cost should be pretty much irrelevant outside of Bandai specifically deciding that Vano Perona can never accomplish anything in her existence. So yeah, it's gonna
also
bypass
slash.
Veri. It's gonna bypass. Yeah, it's gonna bypass Veri. Teach leader like Sabo, cause buffs. There's something else I'm forgetting. The Reiju. Like there's so many cards, so many characters this card disables that I think it's just gonna be a default inclusion in any green leader really, because you want those good 5-cost targets to play off of the Mihawk and the Supernova Law, the 6-cost. So I think this will even be played in like stuff that's more Supernova focused, like the Green Yellow Law, because it's just such a good card to play to push advantage, because again, it's not costing you a card from hand, and that's one of the most valuable things in any card advantage based TCG, which One Piece definitely is.
I think one thing we didn't mention is that it's also a Wano, so there is a chance for you to play more Wano stuff for any green deck, specifically Mihawk. Just because I know some people tried like the You Could Be My Samurai, because everybody loves drawing cards. So maybe this is enough with this and the Kinemon for you to actually try the Wano package for it to be really good.
Yeah, another thing, being a 5-cost Wano character means that it's playable off of the 4-cost Hiyori as well. So you basically get to ramp into this. You get the draw from Hiyori in to play this out, draw one card. Basically makes it a 4-cost 6,000 that's card neutral while stunning one of the opponent's characters. So a couple of things that you could do. And then I guess by extension, the 6-cost Moria, the black one, can play out any 4-cost from your trash. So, in Perona, although Hervoya kind of tossed that off to the side very quickly, you could go 6-cost Moria into the 4-cost Hiyori and then effect into the Olden to play out 2 reasonably sized characters. So, in a way, Perona has her own Mihawk into Olden. Just she needs to figure out a way to get Hiyori into trash first.
There's like 5 extra steps, yeah, to accomplish the same thing.
It's
also, it just occurred to me how insane all of this would be in Red Green Law, like in extra grand battle. Like,
yeah,
these are some insane cards.
Honestly, if we're talking about extra, then like the 6-cost Mihawk being able to play out the 5-cost Law as well from OP01. It's a lot of really interesting things
to the Cavendish, and plays it out active. That's like such a strong upgrade over the 6-cost Law, which is like one of the biggest weaknesses. Was like you can play out the Cavendish, but it's rested, and now it's kind of a sitting duck for your opponent's attacks. But this, even in Green Yellow, just playing out the Cavendish active and then leader shambling in another body, like it would be such a huge power boost, to that deck, which is also going to get some other support in the Yellow Kid deck, which we'll get to at some point later.
Yeah, overall, it sounds like you guys rate both of these SRs pretty high, but there are a couple of other cards. I think maybe we'll talk about the other Land of Wano cards since we're kind of on this discussion with Hiyori Cope and whatnot. Kiemon, a 1-cost 2,000 power character with 1,000 counter. On play, you may rest one of your slash attribute leader or Don cards, or I guess one of your Don cards. Doesn't need to be slash attribute. Then draw 2 cards and trash 1 card from your hand. Does this make the cut in Mihawk, for example, or any deck in particular?
I think so. Just because it's searchable by Perona, so you can do like a lot of searches early, like Perona, find Kinemon draw, find your other stuff, and also it's like a searcher that can't miss. Like it's not really searching, but it's a +1 that cannot whiff.
Yeah, I think that's its biggest advantage, because these decks, especially as there's like more and more like generically good cards introduced into different colors. The fact that you are not locking yourself into an engine and you're still sort of playing a searcher in early game is just a straight up buff. Like this is obviously superior to a searcher on the first turn of the game, because your leader cannot attack. Afterwards, it costs 2 Dawn to do the same thing, but usually you can afford that to minimize the drawback. Like the only downside is like in Mihawk you cannot like leader ability and then play this to actually make use of all the active Dawn you have. But yeah, this is just stronger because especially as more and more generic cards of different typings are introduced, like the only thing connecting them is the slash attribute. So you need some added consistency piece, and this card seems well suited to be that extra glue to make sure the deck functions.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I guess I just noticed this while we were talking about it is a very good target for You Can Be My Samurai. So it's another bonus as well. Basically turns it into a draw 3 in some ways. So yeah, pretty solid card all around. There are 2 other cards. Maybe let's talk about the Rayleigh. 4-cost 5,000 power character with a 1,000 counter. If your leader has the slash attribute, this character gains character rush. Then on play, rest 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. There's one of those cards that Jackson mentioned before that's pure NL hate, but targets a couple of decks as well. What do you think about this card, Jackson?
And now hate and UG buggy hate. It's just funny that you beat both decks in kind of the same way, where you get rid of their weenies, so to speak. But yeah, also just a 4/5, just very strong. And 4 Dawn is really like the awkward turn for Mihawk. You don't really have any good cards to play there, and if you did, you usually don't play them because they're not worth it. But this I can see definitely making the cut, just because that's a 5K stat line, and it has a really good like immediate value with the rush character. Yeah, not sure if it makes the final cut, but I can see there being an option at least.
Yeah, when I look at these types of cards, I hate them. They're like kind of the lock and key design, where the key is really good if a lock exists in the meta, but if it doesn't, it's not a very useful card. So as long as Goofy and NL are good in the meta, then these cards, which specifically target low costs and prey on them, they're going to be good. Like they're going to slow the opponent down, give you the time to stabilize, which is something Mihawk greatly struggles with against both decks, because they can swing so many 6K attacks against a leader that already runs low 2K count. I mean, the card itself, I don't think is good, but in the context of the meta, I expected to see some play as a tech card. It has a beautiful art, though. Wait, who's the artist?
Niji Hayashi.
Okay, Niji Hayashi. Okay, yeah. I thought it was him because he has like some of the best arts. Like, I think that dude made the only out art card that I ever saw Jackson run in his deck. So,
which one?
The Brook 3-cost.
Yeah.
It was just so cool. I had to play it.
Inuyasha is a great artist, but yeah, I agree with Urvoya on this. One thing of note is that for Dong turn, a lot of times you don't really want to rest characters, because that means that the opponent's attacking into your characters instead of your life sometimes, where you sometimes want to be grabbing that extra life or like absorbing damage in absorbing pressure in other ways. This character feels like, especially in context of green, where there's so many powerful 5 costs, there's only maybe one turn where this is particularly good. Other times you have to force it into your curve and make things a little bit awkward to play it off of curve. In general, I feel like this sort of card very specifically targets one thing. What I'm trying to say is that I don't like to play cards because I feel forced to. I want to play cards because they're just generally good. And this feels like a sort of card that's like, if the matchup is bad enough that you're forced to put in a card like this, I feel like there's probably more problems.
Yeah, and there's like the whole meta in the meta aspect that could result in this card being like completely useless, is like, because there was so much hate for like 2-cost and 1-cost characters printed in these starter decks, maybe the meta just shapes up in such a way that Goofy and NL cannot really get a foothold, and then you're just including these cards to target niche decks. I don't expect that to be the case because of the high power level of both of these aggro decks and the fact that so many people already play them, so they will likely continue to play them. But yeah, it's always a toss-up with cards like this. But generally, I do think it helps the curve of Mihawk that needs help against those decks, which is the second curve. So, as I said, I don't think it's a good card, but I think it will see play because of the circumstances of the meta.
I might just generally rate Character Rush a little bit low. I always feel that's a little bit awkward unless you have something like Red-Black Kobe's ability to attack into active characters.
So I don't even think it's that. I just think it's overcosted. Like, if this was like something along the lines of Kobe's Hibari, if it was like a 3-4 with the 1K or a 35 without the counter, okay, 35 without the counter would maybe be riskier. But if it was a 3-cost with any stat line and this effect, it would be way, way stronger. But 4-cost is like that very weird spot where your 4-costs, for most decks, 4-costs are the cards which kind of define how strong the deck is. Like 4-cost, 5-cost, because they're 6K, 7K bodies, and they like end up being centerpieces of the strategy throughout the mid game and influencing a lot of the game. And when they're like 5K, that's a really mediocre stat line, especially because in some matchups where this is good, your leader will be 6K and this will be 5K, so it just gets targeted anyways.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I agree. If this was a 3-cost 4,000, it'd probably be a lot better, just because you're probably going to be using it to attack into the rested 2 costs immediately. But, I mean, one card, though, that does kind of shore up some of those weaknesses is the 1-cost Zoro, who's a 1-cost 2,000 power character, which mysteriously has 2,000 counter with Character Rush as well. And on play, if your leader has the slash attribute, rest up to one of the opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. Basically, a smaller version of Silver's Rayleigh, but with 2,000 counter to boot. Do you think this card is, I mean, it is, in my opinion, much better, but do you feel like it's significantly better to the point that it makes the cut in basically, or like slash decks that can use it?
Slash, Supernova, Straw Hat, like take your choice, and 2K. Like, if you actually want to kill some characters, this guy is like,
yeah.
Yeah, we were already running Apu just
another
because it was a 2K Supernova, but now this is a better 2K Supernova that's also Cerebral Permanent, that's also Rush character. So yeah, it's just clearly better than Apu.
Yeah, I feel like that was like the main reason why people were running the forecast Zoro as well. Just Supernova slash Straw Hat 2K counter. You don't always play it onto the board as a blocker, but just this card also having a good effect on top of that. I think it's just staple in basically every deck that's allowed to use it essentially.
Yeah, and being like another good 1K or 1 cost 2K is it now sets up the 6 cost law as well. Unless your opponent specifically deals with it, in which case he's absorbing pressure as a 1 cost that likely already took out a relevant small body by himself, like a Bonclay or an Olm or something. So just a fantastic card in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's really great. And I mean, ever since you mentioned it before, I keep looking at these cards now as red-green law buffs in extra. And I mean, just all of these are disgusting. You take out the opponent's characters, bounce it back, play down a character. Although, to be fair, it is green, so sometimes a little bit awkward when you're trying to play out some of those green 5 costs, but still,
Your
lots of
first
good
shambles
buffs
is
in
X-Drake, I
extra.
think, so you're good.
Oh, you have X-Drake. Oh, dude. That deck might be
Yeah.
really good in extra. Shit, hold on, I need to think about that. Okay, well, that's things to
Yeah, but
think about for all the people who are going to be going to large-scale extra grand battles. But yeah,
But you know, when I look at this card, one thing I think is a bit crazy is I think back to OP01 and OP02 where Red had Otama and Makino. And I think power level of this card in OP16 is kind of comparable to what Red had in OP1 2Ks. And then Red obviously had like no good cards ever since, but this is like the good 2Ks, the ones that like do a job and they do a good job at it. So I would like to see more cards like this because the cheap cards are really what can make and break a deck in many situations when it comes to flexibility.
yeah, lots of things to think about. Unfortunately, didn't mention Green Zoro all too much, but I guess before we move on to a different color, is Green Zoro going to be in a better spot with these buffs, or do you think that it's just going to get brutalized by other decks?
I think in terms of upgrade, sure, it's a clear upgrade. In terms of will it be better and better now? Absolutely not. Just because one Mihawk, which is like one of its counters, just got a lot better. And then two, I feel like it doesn't really do as much for Zoro. Like for Zoro, you want a lot of cards that either are Straw Hat leader locked or that has something to do with attaching Dawn, and these cards kind of just don't do that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
they made pretty much.
Oh, go ahead.
I will say they made pretty much no support directly for Zoro either. And I think the starter decks as a whole actually introduce more problems for Zoro than they give him solutions, including this very, very starter deck, because what Zoro has problems with is dealing like with body swarm on the board because he can only attack one character per turn. So yeah, he gets the extra attack into the leader, but if there's two bodies on the board, he's only potentially dealing with one. And if it gets defended, then that affects snowballs. And now the other leader builds a huge board and just kills Zoro with the board because you cannot answer everything fast enough to survive. So I think even the green starter deck does Zoro more harm than good. But just by default of being able to play 6-cost Mihawk in Zoro, it does, I guess, gain a slight improvement in the meta as a whole. I just don't think it's going to be relevant enough to prop him to higher tiers of the meta.
Yeah, I'm basically of the same opinion. It feels very sad that they ended up buffing Mihawk instead of Zoro. Two decks that I probably equally dislike. Not as much as I dislike Boa Hancock, but I don't want Mihawk to come back into the meta. But I'd probably prefer Mihawk over Green Zoro, to be honest, if I had to choose one tier 0 deck. But still, green overall looking like a pretty solid color, at least with the new ST32. Maybe let's jump into one that I'm not as sure about. I think there's some pretty good cards in here. But once again, maybe like the green deck, not really buffing the leader that it's intended for. And that's going to be the red start deck for Red Nika. A couple of interesting cards in here, but I do want to first talk about the big boss monster of this start deck, the 7-cost Monkey D. Luffy. 7 cost 9,000 power character, and if you have 3 or more given Dong cards, this character gains Rush. On play, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power during this turn for each Straw Hat Crew type card on your field. This can include your characters, your leader, stages, etc. How do you feel about this card, first of all, in Red Nika specifically, and then maybe some other decks that may be able to use this card as well, potentially, Hervoya?
I would expect it to be good in ST21, which I think it's interesting. It's the second time they're giving us a new starter for pre-existing leader from a starter deck. I mean, I kind of like it. It's kind of like making up for what was obviously a letdown on the initial release. 7-9 is a really good stat line. The kind of weird thing about it is that it deals with board, but it's not guaranteed because red doesn't have like the hybrid tools required to deal with active board. Like you can reduce power of something, but if it's not rested, it doesn't mean anything, and it's not like a 2-turn power reduction like what Rayleigh or Sakazuki have. So this, I kind of don't think it plays into the strength of rush cards, because when I compare it to the other 7-cost red cards, which are currently popular, notably the Zoro, like he can also deal with the board if it's already rested. So you already have this extra push into the board, but he also makes your leader 7k, which gives you that extra resilience and is generally like more flexible, because in late game, if you're like in a very tight race and you need to edge out an advantage, having the Zoro buff your leader to 7k, I think is significantly stronger than dropping this, maybe reducing something by 5k or 6k and then killing it, because yeah, you're getting that swing, but it's already conditional. You need to have the Dawn attached, which on curve would require some prerequisites like the stage, so your leader can attach 2 more Dawn to give it rush. Like I think card is not bad, but it is too situational compared to alternative options on the curve, especially since Zoro is also a straw hat.
Yeah, I think one thing like what you mentioned is that like if you don't have any other ways of attaching Dawn, this is really a piece you play on your 7 Dawn turn is like maybe your 8 Dawn turn, just because your leader can only attach 2 Dawn. So unless you have some other like 1 Dawn attaching card, you're gonna have to wait till your 8 Dawn turn. And then an 8-9 doesn't seem as strong as like a 7-9.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, the most obvious comparison is going to be the 8-cost Krieg. 8-cost Krieg reduces the opponent's characters based on how many don't are attached, and this one, the power reduction is a little bit more potent, especially if you're using a Straw Hat crew-centered deck. But the rush is definitely much more difficult to attain if you're not using ST21. Now, there are actually, I think there's specifically one card in this new start deck that attaches one Dong activate main, which will definitely make this card much, much better. Yeah, I mean, we'll maybe jump into that next, but this card, I agree, definitely a little bit off theme with ST21. I feel like it's the sort of card that in the future, when they figure out what they want to do with red, will end up eventually becoming strong, just as like a big bomb character to take out one of the opponent's characters while establishing a big character of their own. But until then, Krieg might still be better, and even above that, you know, in these decks especially, that 7-cost Zoro just going to be a great option. My one
Exactly.
cope is maybe you could use this in red purple Luffy, but I still think that's a bit of a stretch.
I mean, one thing that you mentioned that I'm not sure actually would relate to this card too, but since you just mentioned the stage, it doesn't help ST21 that much, but it helps Red Green Luffy a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, let's just
It
jump into
helps
it.
ST21 as well, but
Yeah.
yeah, it does help RG Luffy proportionally more.
Yeah, no, this the reason why a lot of people are talking about Red Green Luffy potentially coming back into the meta, the 1-cost 1000 Sunny on play. Look at the top 5 cards, basically just a searcher for a Straw Hat Crew type card. Add it to your hand, then place the rest to the bottom of your deck, and activate main, rest the stage, and give up to one of your rested Dong to a Monkey D Luffy. Leader, character, anything. Yeah. In SC21, attaches one Dong to your leader to then enable you to attach two Dong to a character, for example, which would therefore fulfill the clause of that 7-cost Luffy giving it rush. But more importantly, as you mentioned, in Red Green Luffy, fixes one of the biggest problems that the deck has, in that you have to find a timing to attach one Dong to activate the massive wall of counter that you have on the opponent's turn.
Yeah, so like specifically, it basically moves your curve up 1. So like on your 4 Dawn turn, you can now play Usopp, whereas before you had to wait because you wouldn't be able to attach a Dawn. On your 6 Dawn turn, you can play both the 6-cost Luffy and Usopp instead of having to wait for your 7 Dawn turn to do it. But yeah, it just speeds up your game so much since you're able to play things 1 ahead of curve now. And then also helps the late game too, where you would like tap out on Dawn. I think one play specifically was like Nami, Luna, and then like some. I think Sanji, Nami, Luna. Now you can do because you can attach 1 Dawn because that's a 10 Dawn turn.
I think the biggest thing this card fixes in Red Green Luffy is that deck had to be very particular about the turns it plays searchers on, because every Dawn you spent on a searcher was not the Dawn you could like save as a counter, because you would still have to attach a Dawn. So you were just spending 2k counter to play a searcher early game, and obviously by delaying your searchers you're hurting your consistency. It was part of the skill of the deck to like see your hand and know how to sequence the turns to make sure you're getting the counter value, you're getting maximum development, but you're also like getting searchers in as early as possible. And this is a searcher you can just play immediately, because the Dawn you rest is just immediately getting attached to the leader, so you're kind of bypassing that problem, and now you have a searcher you can play like anytime in early and mid game without actually paying its cost. And I think that is the strongest part of the card. And then obviously just the fact that you accelerate your curve, like being able to Sanji plus Usopp on 7 is probably the biggest buff turn, because you're going to get back 3 Dawn immediately, and then your opponent is like looking at this board that's going to accumulate value turn after turn. And just a fantastic card. But obviously really good for ST21 as well, just by virtue of effectively being attached 3 rested Dawn, which is kind of crazy value. You have a Machina on a stage in a sense, and I think there's fringe value in like other decks. Like if you remember back in OP11, I think there was some Singapore player playing Dragon, I think, with like the Monkey D. Luffy engine from... sorry, it was OP12 then, because it was the Rayleigh Luffy engine. Technically could do something with the stage there as well, attached to the character Luffy, and then shift on around with Dragon Leader. Maybe that's an idea to explore. But RG Luffy, I think, definitely the biggest winner with this card being introduced.
Yeah, no, I mean, Red Green Luffy's not super fun to play against unless you're playing a deck like Black Yellow Teach, but I think that this card just in general feels a little bit overtuned, in my opinion. Red Green Luffy historically, before rotation, was running things like Sabaody Archipelago, the Searcher event, and also some decks were also running the Dawn Attachment Nami from ST01. And basically Bandai is just like, you can have both of them now, and that just solves like basically every problem that the deck had, because a lot of times you'd feel really happy to have that ST01 Nami on the board, but not only does it take 1 spot on your board, but also you have to pay the card to get it onto the board. You have to find it, and it's not searchable off the 1-cost Nami, neither green nor red 1-cost Nami. So a lot of things were awkward about that card. But this card, being a Straw Hat crew, being searchable, therefore, off of the other searchers that the Straw Hat searchers already have, and also just being able to constantly give you value turn after turn, allow you to play 1 turn ahead of time, just makes Red Green Luffy suddenly, I feel like, a pretty big meta contender, which is weird. We've talked about the green Zoro start deck as well as the red Nika start deck, but we're actually talking about Mihawk and Red Green Luffy. But I'm a little bit scared of Red Green Luffy in this next set just because of this one card.
Yeah, that's always a tough deck to play against because the lethals are like a big puzzle, and like it's hard to like if you had time to do it, then sure you can solve it, but on the spot it's like very hard to do within time constraints.
But I mean, I actually haven't read every single one of these cards, especially the common cards, but the other SR of the start deck does definitely feel like it is geared towards the ST21 Red Luffy, and that is the 5-cost Sanji. 5 cost 3,000 power, which is a very uncomfortable stat line, but it has 1,000 counter. Don't X2, this character gains Rush, and on play, draw 1 card, then play up to 1 Straw Hat Crew type character with a cost of 5 or less other than Sanji from your hand.
I'm not sure if it's good, but it does open up a very cool line where you can play the 4-cost Luffy, that one that Rayleigh used to play, because it plays like the 3k stat line is actually now a benefit because it can only play a 3k or less. So on your 4 down turn, you're basically playing a 5-cost that can play another 5-cost. So I'm not sure where that Luffy fits, like if it still stays in Rayleigh or if other decks can play it, but that is a very cool combo that could happen.
I think it's pretty much good only in the red aggro deck. So again, it's going to be ST21, maybe Monkey D. Dragon, purely because of its stat line and the rush requirement. As only decks which manipulate rested on can really achieve it. But in those decks, it should be a pretty easy inclusion because when you play a 4-cost or a 5-cost, it effectively is a 1-cost or a 0-cost 3k body that replaces itself immediately because you draw a card. So it has other targets. It has like the 5-cost Luffy that when attacks, it
Attaches it down.
Attaches the rested on from ST21.
Mm.
Oh, I'm breaking right now, but I'm sure there's other there's the what's it called, the Forco Zoro that also.
Yeah, the one from the SC21.
Yeah, you just need to. Now, if you have targets and you can attach 2 down to this, like it's just pure value because it's effectively a free 5k attack. The turn it enters, then it probably dies, but it kind of did its job. And it's part of those wave of cards that I'm saying, like, kind of in all these starter decks, invalidate Green Zoro as a leader because you just go so wide on board so easily. Like the scenario Jackson mentioned, you can technically like go toop, like Sanji Luffy, whatever, Trico Sanji. And now your opponent is like, oh, they have a full board. I die. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good card, just nothing too crazy because aggro red is not that strong by itself. That's
Yeah.
more of a color problem.
That's probably one of the big things about it. I just see 5 cost 3,000 and just kind of feel very low on the card in general. I think that also just the don't XT requirement to gain rush, just in general, I feel like unless you can actually activate the rush of this card, then there isn't really a reason to play this card because, I mean, it just plays out of 5 cost, so then you might as well just play out the 5 cost in some instances. So I imagine that the combo that Bandai expects you to do is to do the 5 cost Sanji into the SC21 5 cost Rush Luffy, attach 1 dong to your leader, then leader effect to attach 2 dong to Sanji, and that way you can hit 665, which is okay. But I think other than that scenario, I mean, to be fair, it is very good. But other than that scenario, I don't see this card really holding that much value, except for Dragon, which I didn't think of at all until Arvoya mentioned. So there's maybe something fun to do that because I hope they use Singaporean. I don't remember, Southeast Asian player who was on Dragon back in OP12 was actually running that 4 cost Luffy. So small buff for him, and we'll see if he can cook something up.
Yeah, I mean, the Bandai schemed like against Rayleigh for no reason because Rayleigh could have used this being a 4 cost, like just to. I mean, maybe then its effect would be weaker as well, but just so you can actually include it in the deck. Because, yeah, red aggro decks have been left behind. Like every other color does aggro better. So I guess maybe this can see play also in ST30 Luffy Ace. I'm not sure if that's the case, because thinking on the Luffy cards that deck runs, it doesn't seem that insane, but maybe an option. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
think
Kai
it's-
said, like it's just like if you could just play out the 5 cost itself. If you're not getting rush value anyway, then yeah, you're probably better off just playing the 5 cost from here.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess it, in my opinion, feels a little bit awkward right now. But I have seen some really stupid combos be pulled off. But I think one of the big benefits is being able to play this off of the 4 cost Luffy from OB12. So definitely going to be tricky. I tried building this deck and realized that there weren't very many good generic red events. But if you can manage to figure out anywhere from like 12 to 16 events that you can throw into the deck to make that combo somewhat consistent, then I can see this deck. At least this combo popping off. I'm not sure about the deck as a whole.
Yeah, I think one thing that I noticed about this card is like it's not color restricted, so you can play any 5 cost Straw Hat. So there's a lot of good 5 cost Straw Hats in other colors, like the blue Nami, the yellow Luffy, both of them or all 3 of them. I'm not sure how many are, but there are a lot of other good colors that could be able to use this.
Sanji Pudding. Yeah, so waiting for some red purple craziness to come down.
Yeah.
And if this card didn't have the Don't XT requirement and just had Rush, then you could do some weird red yellow Sable shenanigans where you like play out a Rush Luffy, add it to your life, make this character plus 2k, hit for 5k. But unfortunately, doesn't add the Dong. So maybe someday. Maybe someday. Yeah. And then we have 2 more cards in the start deck. These are commons, generally going to be a little bit weaker, which actually I'm going to be reading probably for the second time ever, so I'm going to remind myself what they do as well. Starting with the 5 cost Jinbe, 5 cost 6,000 with 1,000 counter with blocker. On play, draw 1 card and play up to 1 Straw Hat Crew type card with a cost of 1. Oh, this card kind of looks shit to me.
It's just like generic 5 cost 6k blocker that pluses you 1, like very similar in the mode like Queen, like 5 cost Bonnie, and then like even the Odin we just got, which wasn't a blocker, but it's more flexible. But I think it's just a generic okay card.
And if this was any 1 cost and not Straw Hat Crew, then this could actually be a red-green law buff. Too bad. What do you feel about this card, Arvoya?
It's a card. It doesn't fix any of the red problems, but it like by itself, it is a decent card. Like self-replacing cards are always good because, as I said, card economy tends to be everything, but its effect on the board presence is like minimal. So yeah, it's like very misaligned with the red identity, and that's also something I wanted to mention with the 7-cost Luffy. Like having a rush character that's that big doesn't usually help. Because I'm sorry for backtracking here, but I want to mention it earlier. Like rush is the strongest when it's like small rush hits to punishing an opponent who keeps over defending. But that 7-cost Luffy is a rush you have to play at the start of your turn, and that kind of weakens the whole point of a rush type character, where you're punishing your opponent for playing into the effect rather than just punishing them for how they played the previous turn. Because now it's a predictable part of the curve instead of being something that you can keep as an open option, but not necessarily something you want to play. But yeah, Jinbe, whatever. Like maybe one of two of in some deck, but
yeah. And speaking of kind of card that seems like probably people won't care all too much about, I went ahead and read the next card already, which was the Brook, 2 cost 3000 with 1000 counter. On the opponent's turn, if you have 3 or more given dueling, this character gains blocker and plus 3k. So 2 cost 6000 power blocker.
We should ban that in Mexico. I feel like this should have been a 2K. If this was a 2K, it would make a lot more sense. But on its own, I don't think I would ever play this card.
Yeah.
But, this fits the mode of like 2Ks being a last resort blocker that you never want to proactively play, but if you absolutely need a blocker, then you would play it. So that fits that mode. So it's weird to me that it's a 1K.
I mean, the only argument I can see is like I agree it should have been 2K because when we go through like all the decks, you'll see how every deck got like a 1 or 2 decent 2Ks and Red just didn't get a single 2K because screw Red. But in theory, this like with your leader attacks for 5 and then 6k to survive the opponent's turn, like it's nothing insane, but yeah, it's just weak. Like it should have been a 2k to warrant seeing some play. Like this is just rather unimpressive.
In a world where the 6-cost Uta exists, this feels very, even though it's a 6000 power blocker, feels very irrelevant by the time that you actually are going to want to be using it. So
yeah, like having a blocker in a color which like early game blocker in a color which wants to take life, so it has more resources. Like make it make sense.
Yeah, especially in a meta where basically every deck is just spamming 6Ks at you as well. Yeah, okay. Well, we can quickly move away from red then. Got a couple of exciting cards for SC21, but seems like red-green Luffy is the big winner solely because of that 1000 Sunny stage. Revoy, which color do you want to talk about next?
I mean, I'm always a fan of going in order, and the next one is also the deck I happen to test already some amount, so I would just move on to the bull cards. And I mean, I guess I can kick us off. Like we can start with the super rare, I think, which is the most exciting to people, which is the new 6-cost Garp, who has 6000 power, 1k counter, and on play, if your leader is Navy, you can play out a Navy blue 8000 power or less character from your hand, other than Monkey D Garp. So actually, it's not even color locked, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. So just 8000 power or less Navy character. So
hold on,
if we get the blue purple Navy,
this might be a translation error. Let me find the Japanese one because I feel like it was blue.
Are there other blue Navy AK characters in other colors?
Yeah, Sengoku, but there's no blue purple Navy leader so far. So I think it's just for Sakazuki where he could play out like 7-cost Sengoku, maybe.
What color is it? You can also play the Aramaki off of this.
Yeah, but he's blue, so you can just play out the blue ones by default. Yeah,
you can play the 8-cost Garp, you know.
Oh, actually, there's a lot of Navy there, 8K or more, or 8K or less. Like a Smoker Tashigi from Red.
Oh, yes. Okay, the Japanese one does say that it has to be a blue character, so this might be a mistranslation. Yeah, so
I was going off of like I wasn't reading the card. I was just like how I remember the effect being, and then I look at the card and it doesn't say blue. I'm like, well,
yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense then. That's a little bit more fair.
Yeah,
but yeah, take it away. Like, what's your impression of this card, Jackson? Maybe you played Navy leaders before.
Yeah, I think the clearest like target for this is Aramaki. Being able to cheat out an 8K on your 6th on turn, and Aramaki is like you never used to play it just because an 8K you play it on your 8 Dawn turn just seemed so inefficient. Like you wouldn't be playing like bigger bodies by then. But being able to play on your 6 Dawn turn is really good, especially for the Kuzan leader where they didn't release a lot of new cards to help you fight the meta of GU Luffy or a green blue Luffy or purple now, but Aramaki throwback to OP06 did that on its own because it could bot like 2 costs or less, and it's really good against Teach just because you can get rid of all of their 2 costs.
Yeah, no, the Aramaki combo is really good, but you could still play all the other cards as well, just the 7 cost Sakazuki, drawing 2 cards, just being able to play 1 turn ahead. It's so weird that we basically just got the 8 cost Scarf, but for 2 dong cheaper. It just feels like they kind of errated the old card, be like, okay, it was a little bit too weak last time, let's make it 2,000 power less, but 2 cost cheaper, and throw 1,000 counter on it. We might as well, but yeah, by being able to play out cards 1 turn early, it does feel like it opens up a lot of options for Kuzan in general. One of those options in particular, though maybe this may be jumping a little bit ahead, so you can stop me, is that because you line up so many characters that are 5 cost or higher, the 10 cost Buggy is actually a reasonable card that you can add into the Kuzan deck now as a red rock, even though that card has already been rotated out.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I tested this deck a bit. This card is a welcome addition, and like Jackson said, Aramaki is the premium target. I think Sakazuki is not that special, but yeah, I mean, this is just a straight buff. And one thing I've seen a lot of people do when playing Kuzan with the new cards is they cut the old Garp, but I don't think that's correct. Like when you have board swarming effects, they compound. And because it's a deck that has like a really good filtering, you can just make sure your board is 4 bodies wide, or even 5 bodies wide if you have a 4-drop on your 8 on turn, and it can be completely devastating and lead to, as Kai pointed out, tank was buggy, blowing out many matchups out of the water. But yeah, Aramaki is just so good because there's so many 2-cost targets in the meta, and in general, like even against decks where 2 costs are not key part of the strategy, they usually have a way to make use of them. Like Mihawk can bounce them for the law, use them for like you can be my samurai. Purple decks can use Gamma Knife or Sakazuki plus Mamaragan or the new Tenkost Lin to reduce your power and then hit the character. But if you remove these small costs, now their options are greatly reduced. Like they have to waste a real attack. So yeah, this is just a straight fantastic card. And I think we move to the other super rare, which is very simple in comparison, but I think pretty efficient. And so it's a 6-cost Borsalino, 6,000 power, 2,000 counter. He's just blocker, but if you discard a card this turn, he becomes a 3-cost. So 3-cost 6,000 blocker. I'm sure
I think
Kai, you
it's
have
like
a lot of applications.
no, I was gonna say this fits most
take
like
it away, Jackson.
2K last resort blocker. What do you think, Kai?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this, compared to the Garp, is a lot more generic. There's a lot of blue decks that can actually use this card, which I think is pretty cool. The first one that comes to mind, obviously, is blue-black Sakazuki. Your activate main being able to trash 1 card, immediately play this on your 3-dong turn. Weirdly uses it better than blue Kazan does. Just being able to play one of these cards on curve, ironically, feels like a significantly better version of that 2-cost Brook that we just talked about, while being a base 6 cost, while being a 2k, while having 6,000 power on your turn as well. Just really, really good card. I think we have a lot of cards that are similar to this. We have the 6 cost Sabo in black. We have, I know there's one more.
The Whitebeard, the
Sanji.
Whitebeard one.
Oh yeah,
Oh, there's
Sanji.
the purple Sanji.
Sanji purple.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the 4 cost 8K that Whitebeard just got, the ores. That also gets reduced if you have like 8K and becomes a blocker.
Right, yeah. But I think specifically like 6 cost 6,000 power 2k with blocker that has a condition to get -3 cost. We now have, I believe this is the third one with the Sabo and the Sanji, with this one being the third one. And this one feels like it's the easiest to activate. The other ones generally feel like they can only come out on those final turns because you need to have something like 15 cards in your trash, or you need to have 2 less on the opponent, which you can only do after you've been manipulating your dong for quite a while. And this card being able to come out on curve in some instances not only helps a deck like Sakazuki, but also helps out a deck like Blue Rebecca, for example, with the Kyurosu being able to trash 1 card. Then you play out the Borsalino for a very cheap, being able to spread out your board very quickly with this. I think in general, even Blue Buggy, for example, trash 1 card with your leader effect. and then play this out for 3 Dong to help spread out your board of more 5-cost cards. I think just very solid blue buff in general. Weirdly, blue Kuzan doesn't seem like he uses it as well as some other blue decks do, though.
Yeah, so Heroic, I know that you play a lot of blue decks. Like Rebecca, you tried both Sakazukis, and like the common theme among those blue decks being good is that they're very strong control. But I kind of don't see Kuzan having that kind of identity, and it becomes more of like an aggro tempo deck. Like, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, you kind of build a wall and your opponent dies fast. It's more similar to purple Sengoku than it is to typical blue decks. I mean, Borsalino is a good card just by virtue of being a searchable 2K in Kuzan, as well as many other decks that just have easy access to these cards. Blue Rebecca, as pointed out, but also the Blue Jinbe. Obviously Sakazuki, because it also has the Navy typing. But yeah, on Kuzan, you can't really fit him into a curve, except unless your hand is kind of weak, which is like on 8 you're playing Isho, discarding 2, and then you play this guy. Usually it fits. He slots into like later turns where you're just holding off your opponent while the 8k bodies finish the job. Like you play Ice Time and play this, and you leave it on open, and now your opponent cannot close the game because you're holding off 3 attacks by spending only 2 real cards from your hand. But yeah, the card is just generically good, and as Kai rightfully pointed out, it's what Brook should have been, but like it's such a difference in card quality.
Is there any 1-cost Navy card that discards a card? Because I know the black Sengoku is discarding, but that's black. Because I was trying to see if we could fit them into like your 4-Dawn curve.
I don't. None of them come to mind. I feel like generally the blue cards are just like pure searchers. We don't have anything like that Kiyamon quite yet. Or
yeah, currently in blue, I don't think there is one. Like if you ever get the blue purple Navy leader, as I said, then there will be like you will be able to run the purple search event as well, and then stuff really starts going off the rails. But in blue, if there is, it's not a good card because it probably loses cards from hand, and you don't really gain that much value from dropping a 6k body early. I think that's going to be the card's main weakness in a deck like Sakazuki. Like, yeah, it's a 3-cost 6k, like, fantastic stat line, but that's not really what the deck is trying to do, and you're not getting card advantage, so you'll probably just end up falling behind. But also, it can be run in Lucy, that's what I forgot to mention, because he runs Cavendish. So you can, like, do a Sabo plus Borsalino on Tendon, which is probably going to be pretty relevant for that deck, if you can afford to run the Unsearchables.
Yeah, that's actually not bad at all. But yeah. Doesn't seem like there's a 1-cost in blue that trashes a card, but there is a 2-cost that they printed in the start deck, so maybe something that they're trying to do, whether it's the 3-cost, I believe, Sengoku, which is kind of a searcher in the blue Kuzan deck, or the 2-cost Kobi, which is a 2-cost 1000 power blocker with 1000 counter, and on play, you may trash 1 card and draw 1 card, which effectively, with your lead effect, means that you're drawing 2 cards. I've heard mixed opinions about this card. I've heard that it's broken, and I've heard that it's not good enough to make the cut. Roy, as someone who has tested this deck, how do you feel about this card?
You cannot always play it, but I think not playing 4 copies is asinine. Like, you want early consistency, this card gives you early consistency, and it's gonna block a 7k, 8k later. It's just, for me, this is like such a slam dunk, easy include of a card. It's a blocker, it draws a card. Like, what more do you want from your early game?
Yeah, it just seems like, these 2-cost blockers are getting phased out, but that's because if they get removed, you're going negative on card advantage. But like already said, this draws your card. If you play on your 2, it might be your best 2-Dawn turn, honestly. So why not play it?
Perfectly reasonable to me. I think it's just generally very solid card. I think just one of the big issues with the deck is, do you have the space for it? Because you have so many cards that feel like staples. You mentioned that 3-cost Sengoku, the 1-cost Tashigi, just lots of those consistency pieces. I'm not a huge fan of the Sengoku, but it is a +1 to your hand, so lots of things that do need a lot of testing to figure out what the correct ratios of. But yeah, big fan of this card. And we have 2 more to talk about in blue. The Sakazuki and the Smoker. Do any of these really stand out to you, Jackson? One that you want to talk about first?
Yeah, let's talk about Sakazuki since it's next. Its attacking effect is very cool. Just helps you move towards that I'm gonna kill you fast plan by reducing your cards in hand. And then your opponent has to play around it as well. Usually people like to take the first 2 life of almost every matchup, so they can't greedily hoard cards now. They might do that less against you because you have the 5 cost, I think, Sengoku anyway. But it's just, and also like it has a replacement effect if it dies. It doesn't get around like bot decking, but not many decks can bot deck nowadays. So it just seems okay. I'm not sure if you could fit 4. It might be your best 4 down play. What do you think, for you?
In my games, I didn't like the card at all. Like you have, I think, a more efficient 4 down play in Bluegrass from EBR4, because this does kind of like when your opponent gets to choose, like you're not necessarily gaining value. And yeah, it taxes their hand, but you can also tax their hand with issue at a later point. And the more of these hand taxing effects you run, there's more diminishing returns, because at some point they just start keeping their hand size under the limit by virtue of normally playing the game. And being a 5k body, he's not that big of a threat to actually be removed. And even if you do remove him, the problem is like the 4-cost targets are kind of difficult to keep around in your hand, because as the game progresses, those are the ones you will want to cycle out because you're trying to stick to your curve. So I wasn't a fan of this card. I'm not sure if I'll run any copies, honestly, if I end up playing Kuzan. But it does have some utility if you go for like a way more tempo-oriented plan, which I'm not sure the deck will necessarily have to do, as it has some really good like control fallback options. But I like the design space, and I think given like the right support on the rest of the curve down the line, it could actually be really strong. But currently, I think the number of 4-cost characters you actually want to include is too low.
Yeah, I think those are both fair. On paper, I really don't like this card all too much. I don't remember what card it really reminds me of, but I just feel like in general, you do want to be playing Bluegrass, as that blue Kazan Cavendish in a way in this deck, rather than playing the Sakazuki on curve. But my testing partner, who used to be a big blue Kazan player, basically since its release, does run this card at 4 copies currently, just because he says that without this card, the mirror is never going to end within 30 minutes. So if you look at it from the mirror perspective, getting rid of the opponent's cards out of hand slowly but surely does make sense, I guess. But yeah, I mean, disregarding the mirror, I'm also fairly low on this card as well.
Yeah, I think we're closing it off on a high note though for blue, because the next card is another 2k counter, which is Smoker, Navy type obviously. He's a 2-cost 3000 power, and on play, you can trash a card from hand and bottom 2 of your opponent's 2-cost or less characters, which, as we already discussed, has some implications for the current meta. So feel free to take it away, Jackson.
Yeah, I love utility 2Ks. It's not great against every deck, so if this was a 1K counter, it might not be an auto-include, but since it's a 2K, you can fit into every deck. Yeah, not much to say. It might not be good in the meta if Enel and Green Blue Luffy get out or phase out of the meta, but it's still just a 2K, so you can always run it, and if you happen to see it, then it'll come up. Yeah, not much to say about that.
I mean, in general, I think it's a very good card, but I think especially in Blue Kazan, where you also potentially run another very interesting card in the 5-cost Siddha, this is actually a really powerful card. So the 5-cost Siddha, when you trash 2 cards, forces one of the opponents to bottom deck one of their characters, but they can choose which character they bottom deck. But one of the ways that you play around that is you just spam out a bunch of small characters, so that if they play out this Siddha, then you just, okay, here's a searcher, and it's gone. But if you play Smoker and Siddha, then suddenly the opponent is forced to bottom deck their 10-cost Teach or something, because all of their Vasco shots have been bottom decked. So I think that especially in Blue Kazan, this card is crazy good. But like even in a deck like Sakazuki, although you do actually have to trash 1 card, just because it's a 2k counter, I feel like it can be a very good tool as like an emergency 4-cost SleeveChief, for example. So very good card in general, but I think insane card in Blue Kazan.
Yeah, I think any card that forces your opponent to reconsider their lines of play and game plan in general is a good card. And when it does so in the 2k slot, you're very, very happy. Like, for example, in Teach matchup, one of the matches we tested last week, I think Teach is not allowed to play any 1-cost from his hand to the board at any point during the game, which is obviously extremely damaging to his game plan of getting value redirects and getting the effects. Because if they play down 2, even if they play down 1, you can just play this bottom. And then when you get to Aramaki on curve, you're just bottoming everything as it comes down. So I think that each matchup already like just by virtue of these cards existing gets a lot harder for Teach to navigate, and that's not even taking into account like that you can search Gravity Blade to bottom stuff or Ice Time their Shiryu plus 8 cost Teach. There's so many things you can do in various matchups, and I also think this will influence a lot of the aggro matchups because yeah, technically this can be really good into Green Bull, Luffy, and Enel, but they can also try to navigate around it. Like they can try to develop their 2 costs in parallel later, so that you have to choose between like developing your strongest curve or dealing with them through Smoker. Like maybe you can do Garaparamaki bottom 1 2 costs, but now 2 more live instead of you playing Smoker and bottoming 2, and now their board is much weaker. So I like this type of card design, though I think it might be a bit too powerful for the 2K slot.
Every card that we look at, I keep looking back at red. I'm like, what were they thinking with all these terrible red cards? But shafted again. Yeah, no, this card just really, really good all around. I wish that, I mean, it's asking for too much, but if Blue Kazang had good ways like the 6 cost Joseph to bounce it back to your hand as well, that would make it perfect.
Jules is a blue card, so there's nothing stopping you.
You can play with whatchamacallit? What's the I always call this white snake, but it's not snake dance. The one
yeah.
cost that bounces the 2 costs or less.
Slave Arrow.
Slave Arrow. I always call that snake dance. But yeah, Slave Arrow, it's not bad with that.
Yeah, actually.
But you already have a 1 cost 4K.
Yeah, I think Kuzan is, in terms of deck building, after starters is going to be the most fun because, as Kai said, there's so many staples and people are so unwilling to cut off what used to be staples. Like, and that's where I shine. That's why I love the first formats because I'm not afraid to cut anything. So yeah, you have 5 good cards here, 4 really good cards. You got to make space for them. So better start cooking now.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you put in just every good card, you have 4 of the 5 cost Isho, 4 of the 6 cost Kazang, 4 of the 7 cost Sakazuki, suddenly your entire deck's just full of bricks. So you're going to need to find something to cut down on, and a lot of people not willing to sacrifice some of those cards that have felt really good in the deck historically. Still, I'm excited for this deck as well. Personally, it is the one that I'm looking forward to the most in the start deck format, even though I don't know if it's the one that I'll end up playing, but still very excited for this deck. I think there's just lots of really good tools, and it definitely seems like Bandai is pushing this deck as well. Still though, let's talk about the next deck in the color wheel, Purple. Purple Katakuri got a couple of interesting cards. There's a big 10 cost Mom, but maybe let's talk about Katakuri since it's the Katakuri start deck. This is a 5 cost 7,000 power character. On your turn, once per turn, when a Don card... Sorry, I'm not used to English text. When a Don card on your field is returned to your Don deck, if your leader has the Big Mom Pirates type, add up to 2 Don cards from your Don deck and rest them. And on KO, play up to 1 character with 8,000 power or less from your hand. Pretty good. What do you think about it, Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, if only you were had the teach effect where you can redirect it to your guys, so you can play out the 8 cost category, but we can't have all the things we want. But yeah, just very. I mean, it's already leader lock, so it's very catered to the 3 Big Mom Pirate purple leaders we have, which I think are Pudding. I'm not sure if we have a purple Linlin, but the other one's category. But yeah, just very good piece for your curve. You're basically going to your 8th on turn after you play this because your leader punches 1, but you get to ramp 2. So yeah, it helps you get to exactly 8 cost category next turn. But on the other hand, this other effect also can play you, which wasn't the intended target of 8 cost category if it dies. So it deters your opponent from killing it. And if they just never kill it, you have a 7k attacker for the rest of the game.
I don't know what to say about this card. It's 5 cost 7k with effect is pretty much always the best unit in the deck. And I believe that's the case here as well. But I also think there's a problem with it. They made this card so strong that they kind of shafted the deck when it comes to power budget of the other cards. Because now the deck, I feel, is, from the games I played and played against, it feels like the deck is entirely reliant on this card. Whether you see this card or not on turn 3, it almost decides the outcome of the game on the spot if you don't see it. Because it's just such a huge power increase because you get this 7k body they cannot answer. Most decks don't have a way to bottom deck it, so it just sticks, and it's a 7k beater every turn that just ramps you. It ramps you insane because after this, you can go into 7 cost pudding, especially going first. You play this on 5, your opponent does their 6 on turn, and you play 7 cost pudding, you play Katakuri, you don't burn any Don, and then the turn Katakuri ramps you 1, so you can even save the leader ability to gain the 1k counter alongside the free block you get from Katakuri. So this card I think the only mistake with this card is they put too much power into it, and they like centralized the power budget for the most of the starter deck into this one card, because it's just so good. But when you don't have it, it feels worse than not having Sanji Pudding in like Green Purple Luffy or any other similar example where a deck was reliant on their 5-cost 7k. Like, I would rather play Smoker without 5-cost Smoker on 5 or GP without Sanji Pudding on 5 than Purple Katakuri without this 5-cost Katakuri on 5. So I think cards is both a blessing and a curse in that regard, in design sense.
Yeah, and it feels like weirdly Bandai replaced one of the old problems with Purple Katakuri and just replaced it with this one, because it used to be exactly the same, where if you couldn't find the 5-cost Spittle on curve, then your deck just didn't exist. But this card just feels like a basically purely better version of the 5-cost Spittle, which now just creates the same problem, just one step higher. And so, yeah, I think it's the same. Even if you run both those cards, you're going to feel a lot worse if you get the Spittle and not the 5-cost Katakuri in the end. So, yeah, it's an excellent card. But yeah, exactly as Roy was saying, if you don't find it on curve, this deck's going to feel very different in power.
Right. And I think one thing that it goes around it being like a good 5-cost card is you have so many good 5-cost cards on curve already, like Paraspero, like you mentioned, or Sanji Pudding if you play it. I'm not sure if you do. So it helps the consistency in the deck because you're less likely to miss your 5 down turn, but it doesn't help your ceiling of the deck, where if you had a perfect curve of like 5, 7, or like 6, 8, you're missing out on that because you don't have an exactly perfect 6 down turn anymore, or new one if you had one before. So yeah, definitely boosts consistency, but not boost to a ceiling at least.
Yeah. There's some funny things that I saw online when they first showed this card, though, is the on KO effect will let you play things like the 8-cost Katakuri or the 7-cost Sakazuki in NL, though. So, not that the opponent would ever let you do that, but if somehow you can compel the opponent to take out your Katakuri in NL in a deck where this is just a vanilla, then you can do some really stupid things in decks that shouldn't be allowed to. No,
It's pretty funny.
It's absolutely terrible, but this is just what happens when you look at Twitter at 3 a.m. Yeah, but another card though, which it's an interesting card. So I'll ask for your opinion on it first. Is the 10-cost Charlotte Linding, 10-cost 12,000, which on play reduces Dome -4, and you may trash one card from your hand, add one card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards, then up to one of your opponent's characters' base power becomes 0 during this turn. Kind of similar to the 9-cost Mom, but in a sort of different way of removing the opponent's characters. How do you feel like this is not only in Purple Katakuri, but also just in maybe Purple generically as well, Jackson?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, it's a generic purple card. It's not leader locked or anything. The Dawn -4 is like kind of negligible since purple is a random color anyway, so you have ways of getting your Dawn back. But the interesting thing, like you mentioned, is the becoming 0 cost, which is similar to like the red Ein that we used to have. So it's like a very clearly like a card where I want to delete him as much as possible, which means increasing my life and also removing one of your big bodies that you spent all your turns playing. I'm not sure if there's any other deck or any purple deck right now that can be super controlly like this, where it's like I win this game in the late game, so I'm gonna try this all as much as possible. Just because purple, like on its own, is kind of like poor at surviving till that late game. So there's a lot of payoff for it, but you just have to make it there. I'm not sure if purple can make it there.
I think this card kind of it sort of adds to the problem of Purple Katakuri, where now you're just locked into having to have this perfect curve progression for your game plan to stick. Because again, if you see 5-cost Katakuri into Pudding combo into this, then you can like do this post Mamaraga and have one of your low-cost searchers attack the character, or you can like have a pre-played Tamago, which we'll get to in a second, KO the card. But if you don't, suddenly this card is a lot weaker, and it can maybe only find a place in other purple decks which can afford expensive boss monsters, which I think is pretty much Black Purple Luffy only. I haven't thought in too much detail about the rest of the purple leader pool, but that was the only one that quickly came to mind in regards to actually using this card. And yeah, setting base power has some minor synergies, but mainly you're just going to be maybe Mamaraging the character, maybe just attacking it with something small to just get the easy trade in. I mean, it's a solid card, but might be too expensive for for the level of board impact it has. And honestly, I just hate the art. Like I look at it and I see the Titan that ate Eren's mom in Attack on Titan, and I'm like, what the fuck? There's just like some terrifying design.
I can see it now. Yeah, you stole the deck that I was going to talk about right out of my mouth, unfortunately. Black Purple Luffy does seem like one of the decks that can use this a little bit better, just because you can re-ramp those 2 dong. Not only can you ramp to 10 dong pretty quickly with that deck, but being able to re-ramp 2 dong when you play this card down allows you to just spam this card over and over again in Purple Black Luffy, which does solve one of the issues for that deck when it tried to play a more control-y playstyle, where it's like, you're a 4-life leader that's trying to play control, so unless you're really good at controlling, then you're just going to end up being run over. So by having these ways of delaying the game in a way that, like Blue Purple Luffy had back in the day with 9-cost Mom, it allows you to buy a little bit of time. I'm not convinced that it's enough, unfortunately, for Purple Black Luffy, just without more consistent mid-game tools, for example, in that deck that don't require the opponent to be at certain amounts of dong to just get randomly fucked over by Purple NL. But, there's a couple of pretty good Big Bomb Pirates now in purple, so maybe there's some interesting packages that are available, because most of those cards are generic as well. Maybe in the future we'll have like Thriller Slop, but it's Big Bomb Slop in purple. Who knows? But I think that one more leader, which we have no information on, so it's hard to say for sure, that may be able to use it, just my speculation, is potentially OP17 with Kaido. Just because if you imagine or remember back in OP01 with the old purple Kaido, Animal Kingdom Pirates was a deck that really liked to ramp hard to 10 very quickly. And so if the deck is somewhat reminiscent of the way that it used to be, then these sorts of cards that benefit from being able to constantly re-ramp up to 10 dong quickly could benefit as well. So a little bit of speculation. I can see the card being useful in the future, but I agree with both Jackson and Urvoye that, sorry, I almost called you Jonas, that right now the card feels like it doesn't really have a perfect home.
Yeah, I do see the potential,
You're
though,
probably
like
on the
we
right-
said, Mom Morgan. Like, this is my preferred way of removing cards now, is by making them 0 and then or low and then attacking over them. Like, I don't like cost-based removal anymore, so I see the potential for it, and once it finds a home, it might be, like, really good. Sorry, what were you about to say here for you?
No, I was saying you're probably on the right track with Kaido, because it's one of those decks which will naturally be able to include the Black Maria 2K in the deck. So one of those ways to re-ramp, like the first real way to re-ramp heavily after done minusing. So there is some future for the card for sure.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I mean, it's definitely not a bad card. It just needs a good home. Were you talking about the Baron Tamago before, Urvoye?
Baron Tamago and Pecoms is a 3-cost 4,000 character with 2,000 counter, which is obviously easy slot in the deck, and it has when attacking, don't -1, KO one of your opponent's characters with 2,000 base power or less. And the important part about this is it's just another piece of like low cost hate, but since 10-cost Mom sets base power, you can combine it with this card, which you pre-play to destroy anything on the board. So I just think that the piece of synergy alone already makes it like pretty good for Big Man Pirates purple decks. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, the synergy is very cool. I don't think this 3 cost is going to survive enough for your 10 down turn. But it's a 2K, and like we said, like 2Ks are always playable. Funny enough, I thought to segue with a different deck is Purple Now might be interested in this card because it seems like a mirror breaker. But I don't want to harp too much on Purple Now. Yeah, it's just cool synergy. Don't think you're gonna get it off very often, but it's a 2K.
Yeah, I think this was probably one of the first cards that they showed for the start deck, and I immediately wrote it off because it seemed like OP04 level of card that's like pack filler. It's a 2K, so you'll run it, but you'll never actually play it down on the board. But I forgot that Lin Lin, because it sets base power, does actually combo well with this card. So I mean, if you could pull it off, that's crazy. But yeah, definitely one of those dream combos, and maybe a mirror breaker in NL for sure. Yeah, a little bit better than I thought that card would be. But there's, oh yeah, I forgot about this card too, Charlotte Brûlée, which is just a very simple searcher that searches the top 3 cards for a Big Bomb Pirates type card, but has a 2,000 counter as well. So one thing, sorry, a little bit of a sidetrack, Buena Festa from ST06 or something was a searcher with a 2000 counter as well, and then like finally we're getting cards like that back in the last couple of sets, and it feels like that card was really ahead of its time.
Yeah, and that card was a funny include. Like I remember you played it in one deck. I forgot what it was where you played one exact copy of the Devil Fruit, but it was there just for like the body. What was it?
No,
Oh,
you're
Lim,
thinking
right,
of Lim,
right.
but Lim played the what the hell was his name?
I
did
Oromachi
play
something
Manifesto.
like
Yeah.
that.
was gonna say
Yeah,
Orochimaru.
oh yeah, Orochimaru. But in OP13 they played Buena Festa because the film support came out with like the Sanji and the Tenko Shanks. So they actually played the Buena Festa as well later.
Right. But yeah, this is just really good consistency piece. 2K is always playable. We had similar cards like this too, like the Nami for Sky Island is also a very similar thing. And I played a lot of that deck, so I did have to play the Nami a lot to find my curve. So a really welcome addition to any deck looking to up its consistency.
Mhm.
What do you think, Kai?
Yeah, I mean, the deck definitely needs consistency, as we talked about, but I really prefer this kind of card over the one-cost Sida that Navy has, where you have to trash one card after. Like, I hate those types of, in purple, I hate those types of cards where, like, the one-cost Piddle enough from, I think, OP10, maybe around that area, where you search top 5 and you have to trash a card. It feels just really bad. So I prefer this sort of design like that one-cost Nami in yellow and now the Charlotte Brûlée. So it's welcome. It's a 2K. You're obviously going to run it if you're running the Big Mom Pirates package.
Somehow you didn't mention the Blue Viola, and that one was like
Shit.
that one always felt the most egregious to me because of the ease with which Lucy benefited from these small bodies, like way more than Viper would, because he can also take Joseph for some matchups, so he just bounces 2k back to hand, but also because of the Fire Fist power reduction, every 2k would actually potentially, every 2k weenie would potentially take out a body later. But yeah, this is just like good, easy to include design. It's not overbearing because it's only searches top 3, so like it's not giving you the full range of options. It has like solid potential to whiff, but overall just an easy include because every deck needs consistency. And actually, with this card existing, now, if you want to find 5-cost Katakuri on curve in Big Mom Pirates, you have pretty much the same chances as you did with Green Purple Luffy when it released in EBO02, because you have the top 5 searcher in the pudding, top 5 searcher in We Will Claim the One Piece event, and top 3 searcher in the Brûlée. So, yeah, if you want to find the score piece, you have better chances than, or as good chances as the best deck in the format had at one point, but maybe we can judge how that will go based on how hard GP Luffy fell off since. But yeah, just a good support.
Yeah. I mean, the big difference, though, between this deck and GP Luffy is that GP Luffy, the more Sanjay puddings that he had, the stronger the deck got, whereas this deck, getting more 5-cost Katakuri doesn't actually help you all that much, because eventually you're going to hit 10 Dong. So even if you're trying really hard to minus your Dong, like, you're going to want to move on to things like the 7-cost putting into the 8-cost Katakuri or the 10-cost Pump, for example. So, I mean, it's good for finding your pieces, but when you need to find every single piece, that's going to be another question as well.
Yeah. And then should we talk about our last card, Charlotte Cracker, just 4 Dawn, 5k power, 1k counter. Just basically on play, ramps you a Dawn, and then KOs something 2 cost or less. What do you think, everybody?
It's similar sort to like the Green Rayleigh, but I think in this deck it warrants a bit more inclusion because it's just naturally more inclined to play towards a control curve, and it ramps you directly to 7, which, it doesn't enable pudding, but it's a good number of Dawn to have. So, because then you can play 5-cost Katakuri and pre-play a 2-cost Katakuri and just be ready to explode in one turn later. Overall, like, it's not a fantastic card. If it gets played, it's a tech card. But adding to the 2-cost hate train to deal with aggro of Goofy and NL.
Yeah, my main issue with this card is that you don't really have something that you want to play on 7 Dong because, like Roy mentioned, that 7-cost pudding doesn't actually work yet when the opponent has 5 Dong at their disposal. And so then basically what this card would probably mean is that you play the Cracker, go to 7 Dong, but you play the 5-cost Katakuri anyways. Then you ramp with that card as well to then play maybe the 10-cost Lin Lin 1 turn ahead of time to ramp up to 10 Dong. But it does feel like one of the strengths of a card like this would be to play a 7 cost really early on, and the deck just doesn't really have that, at least in the standard version of the deck. So yeah, I kind of rate this card lowly, but generally I don't like 4 cost 5,000 power characters.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The one thing about starter decks is it should give you a curve piece that you didn't already have before. So I think it solves one in that it's an okay for down play. I think before all you had was like the Brule blocker that ramps when it dies. But yeah, like you said, nothing you really want to play on 7 while your opponent's still at 5. Unless there's a cool category play where you play 5 cost category, play the 2 cost category, and then that also plays the other 5 cost category, and now you have 2 of them on board. But you need 3 categories in hand for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for someone it will, and it'll make a really good highlight on YouTube. But yeah. So let's talk about one of the more controversial start decks, one that a lot of people have been memeing on a lot, Red Black Sable, who has gotten a very unorthodox package of cards, but I think that the card that'll help contextualize all of these cards the best is going to be the 5 cost Bartholomew Kuma. This is a 5 cost 5,000 power character with 1,000 character, which has +3 costs when on the board, fulfilling the condition of your leader effect. And on play, gives a Rested Dong card to your leader, then plays 1 Revolutionary Army type character with a power of 4,000 or less from your hand or trash. Firstly, how do you feel about Red Black Sable, and then how does this card sort of slot into the deck? Because it doesn't feel like it fits the standard version of Sable, does it?
Stay away from it.
No, okay.
I have no
about this
idea.
because every time I try to make a prediction on the Revolutionary Army leaders before, I was wrong, between like a bit wrong to insanely wrong. So I'm afraid to talk about this. What this obviously does is introduces options to Sabo's odd curve, which is the weaker curve. But it kind of shifts him into going wider on the board without having many like really useful effects to resolve on the spot. Like going +1 off of the card should be decent. Like you get 2 5k 6k, like you get a 5k 6k body effectively with the leader involved, and you're getting your leader effect online faster. I mean, I guess you could also run this in Koala, but I'm just looking from Sabo perspective. And whether what you want to do is body swarm, I don't know. I'm afraid to make predictions. Like maybe it is, but it doesn't seem necessarily the case. So I really don't want to talk about this card until I test it, until I test the whole deck this or next week. So I will withhold my judgment carefully.
This is probably the deck I looked to least because it was like least interesting and also seemed one of the less influential. But like you said, like it's good on your odd curve, but your leader's gonna be 6k most of the time. So having this, actually no, this guy's gonna be a 6k too.
Yeah, he's gonna be 6 as well.
It's interesting, Koala, like you said, because it's 8 costs and it helps you fulfill that condition of having 2 8 costs. Yeah, but other than that, I don't have much opinions on it. Okay.
I'm trying to remember if there was a 4,000 power or less character that also becomes an 8 cost that would make Koala make sense so that you can play 2 8 costs onto the board, but I can't think of any right now. So actually, this is the deck that I've tested the most after Kuzang of the new start deck so far, just because my friend's been really coping the aggro version of this deck, where basically the elevator pitch is that this is red Zoro, but you're allowed to use Karase, make your opponent's leader 4,000 power. So even though these characters feel really horribly statted, they're 4,000 power and 5,000 power. With your leader effect, they become 5,000 power and 6,000 power, and the opponent's leader is going to be 4,000 power. So you can kind of picture these cards as actually if you get that Karase on the board, a 5/7 that plays out a 6,000 power character, which makes it suddenly a lot better. And because it's playing it out of your trash, very similar to a card like Buggy in that it doesn't actually cost an extra card out of your hand. So I think that this card in particular is very strong. You can also play it because it's 5,000 power. You could play it off of the 5 cost Ionkofu, search in the top 3 for a 5,000 power or less Revolutionary Army card. And you can also play it off of the 4 cost Ionkofu out of your hand. If you attach 1 dong to your leader, attach 1 dong to the Ionkofu to make it 7,000 power, activate main, Kuma, and then you have a lot of crazy things going on. So I think there's potential when you're really trying to spread out your board with this deck, and also because your characters are like 3 cost to 8 cost, they're out of range of a lot of those weenie hate cards that have been printed in the set. I think that if aggro ends up dying, then this could be one of the aggro decks to carry on that torch and uh, remain as an aggro deck in the meta because it's not targeted by all the Sweeney hate. Whether or not it's good enough, it's very hard to say because this deck does not replace cards in its hand like a deck like Green Blue Luffy does. And I think that it definitely has the tools to be a very aggressive deck within the meta.
Yeah, and back to what you said about Koala. I looked at some of the cards, and yeah, this does seem like more catered towards Koala because there are a lot of 4 costs or 4 power revolutionary army cards. I think I saw 1. Actually, maybe I saw 0. But yeah, this just helps you fulfill that 8 costs exactly, since it's exactly +3. But yeah, if there is another 4 costs or 4K that is also an 8 cost, then yeah, it just seems perfect for it.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yeah, not much opinions on it for Sabo.
I mean, from Kai's speech, I can see that maybe the goal is now to go wide off of these effectively 1 card plays, because when you play a card from trash, it's way more efficient because you get to choose from so many options. And now I'm imagining something like playing Echo's Dragon, reviving the 5-cost Ivankov, hitting this off the top, reviving something else, and now your board is like going to have a 9k attack, a 7k attack, a 6k attack, a 5k attack off of just 1 card from hand. And okay, I can kind of see how that can snowball out of control and how it's impossible to deal with for a lot of I'll have to test it. Like it does sound promising though. Like at least worth hearing the pitch. So
yeah,
you called it cope though. Like you said, it's cope at the start. So I will not get overly excited.
Yeah, I need to preface that because the deck doesn't have ways of increasing its resources, it has the potential of just being burnt out very quickly. But because you summon cards out of your trash or like very efficiently with things like that 5-cost Ivankovu or just the Kuma or Koala itself pulling cards out of your trash, you can cheat resources a little bit. But yeah, the deck has some decent 4,000 power characters to play off of it. Obviously, the 4-cost Hack, which maybe we'll talk about soon, is a good card that's a blocker that's also weenie hate that also technically becomes a 5,000 power attacker. And then there's also the 4,000 power Inazuma that was used in Bella Betty as well. That if you have a 7,000 power character gains Rush, basically is just a Rush Zoro within this deck. So there's some interesting cards to try within this deck that makes me rate the deck a lot higher than a lot of other people are rating it. But I need to test it within the context of the full meta to actually really tell if it's going to be strong enough. Still, though, that's just one of the cards. We briefly talked about Hack, so I guess I'll mention that now. It's a 4-cost, 4,000 power blocker with 1,000 counter, and on play KOs one of the opponent's characters with a base power of 2,000 or less. Pretty simple effect. You can play it off of Kuma. Any other thoughts on that card?
It's just okay.
Yeah.
This is a horrible stat line. Like this stat line makes me vomit. Like you have a blocker weaker than your leader that costs 4, and the only upside is you kill a small character in a leader that is 6k.
Yeah.
I guess like a toolbox option for the revive is not the worst, but man, I hate this card. Like, okay, but if it is go wide, we go aggro, then this is attacking, so it's just like kill something, and you never play it for its real cost. You just play it from trash. So anyway, maybe it's playable. Like this is all territory that is really difficult to judge without actually testing.
Yeah. I mean, for Subble, you just have to picture that every single card has plus 1,000 power. So even though the stat line looks terrible, it's technically a 4-cost 5,000 power blocker that KOs a character, but even still probably wouldn't be that good if it was a standard slow deck like Subble used to be. So the 7-cost Koala is a card that's been a little bit more awkward from my testing, but still has a very similar effect to Kuma, so let's talk about that. A 7-cost 6,000 power character, once again a character with a pretty horrible stat line, with 1,000 counter, and gains blocker as well as 1 cost, becoming 8 cost. And on play gives your leader 1 rested dong, then plays a Revolutionary Army type character with a power of 4,000 or less from your trash or hand. Jackson, any extra thoughts on this card?
Not particularly. I mean, it's helping you go wide. A lot of these cards are like very similar in that you're playing stuff from trash, but the stuff you're playing is like kind of mediocre. And then the stat line is just disgusting. It just reminds me of like the Rebecca from the Dressrosa, the blue Rebecca, where you play a 7 cost, it becomes an 8 cost. So maybe you can even play in Usopp since it's technically a Dressrosa card. But for Sabo itself, I'm not sure how good it is that you're spending 7 down to play a 6K and a 4K.
I'm going to take Urvoye's silence as a cue for me to speak on this. Even though I'm a big Sabo believer, and I think that you probably still end up running this card, it feels terrible because it's 7 cost, meaning that it's out of range of the 8 cost dragon that can only summon a 6 cost out of your trash, and it's 6,000 power, meaning that it's out of range of the 2 Iwankofus that we talked about. So it feels like a card that was printed like several years ago. It might still make the cut just as we talked about with Blue Kuzang, just more ways to expand your board. But it feels bad to play in general for me.
Yeah, so my gears are spinning a little bit. I'm just trying to visualize how this Sabo deck would play, because a problem is when you don't have rush characters, when you just go wide, you have this turn of developing, going wide, and then you tap the board. And what do you do on that turn that you tap the board if your board is already like mostly full? You probably don't want to start overplaying your characters, because then you're doing your opponent's job for them, because they'll just attack life or attack the remaining characters. But if you're not developing, you need to have alternative plays. And I'm thinking if you play Kuma on 5, revive something, attack with leader, would you rather play 6 cost Sabo, who is 8k blocker, and leaves you like board space for next turn when you go dragon into potentially the Kuma that dies into something else? Or do you actually want to go like medium wide with this, what is going to be a 7k blocker? I mean, it helps the first curve for sure. I'm just not sure if it is the...
I think maybe the most powerful turn is like you're exactly where you said, where you swing both bodies on 5, and then now you play this guy as a blocker, and then you play the other hack, which is another blocker. So maybe you block her up with 2 blockers. That might be its best application. But yeah, it makes it weird for Sabo.
Yeah, you're probably just looking at which characters exist. Your premium target is probably the 3 cost 4k Kuma that filters 2 cards for the 4k revive, but you're going to have a limited number of those. Well, this is a very weird deck to talk about without any like in-play experience.
Yeah, no, it's a one of those decks that you need to sort of like try to sort of get a feel for. So I won't keep harping on you guys about all of these new cards, but let's just go through the rest of the cards. Maybe I'll just like mention some of my thoughts in testing these cards, and then we'll move on to Yellow Kid, which I personally have not tested all too much, but a lot of people have been very hyped for. Still, to round out Red Black Sabo, we have Lindbergh, 4 cost 4,000, 2k counter, which on play gives one of the opponent's characters minus 3,000 power, which is a worse version of the 2 cost Koala that already exists. So I'm not going to talk about this card. Thoroughly disappointed. I guess the only merit is that you can technically search this off of the 1 cost Koala Searcher in black, whereas you can't search for the 2k Koala Searcher. But for the most part, this is just a revive target, but you can revive the other Koala as well while still being a 2 cost. So more versatility in the other one. A card that I'm more excited for is the Karasa, though. Karasa, 3 cost 4,000 power character with 2,000 counter, and when attacking, you may trash 2 cards from the top of your deck, and if your opponent has 7 or more cards in their hand, the opponent trashes 1 card. So just a way to deal with decks that have monstrously large hand size, especially if you're going aggro. This kind of feels like it's hitting twice in a way, where you're hitting for 5k while also ripping out an extra card out of the opponent's hand. So it's not bad just as a revive target when you don't have something else to do, but I think that there's some pretty reasonably good revive targets within the deck already, so just going to be an extra option. It's a 2k, so you can't really complain about it, and the art's very cool, so that's another plus for the card as well. Now, let's move on to the final card then, Yellow Kid. I have not actually tested this deck at all.
Can I just say something on the... Sorry to interrupt.
I'm
just thinking, like, Revolutionary Army in Red and Black has so many 2K counters, it's actually kind of insane. Because yeah, you mentioned this is like a koala. I guess it could be classified as a side grade because if you do revive it, it is like a better stat line than koala. And also the fact that searcher, well, maybe that's enough merits to just play it over the koala. But there's also like the old like the 6 cost sabo we mentioned earlier, like 15 trash. It has reduced cost. Like these new 2Ks, the sabo that taps to give something plus 2K to potentially enable effects. Like it feels like they're focusing too much on random defensive cards without like any value generation. And Karasu is like kind of nice utility slot for a 2K. So I'm not sure we find the space for all these 2Ks, but that's all I want to say. Sorry for interrupting. Let's move back to good.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, when I was building this deck, I noticed there's a shit ton of 2K counters. Like, there's even the red 4-cost Sabo as well. There's just like, they keep adding 2Ks for some reason, but of those, I think Karas is one of the better ones. Lindbergh, it really just depends on if you need the extra searchability, for example. But yeah, I don't really know where to start with Yellow Kid because I haven't really tested this deck too much. Have either of you guys messed around with this deck too much? Want to talk about one of the cards first?
No, but I've seen a lot of posts, and a lot of people are very high on Yellow Kid.
It definitely seems so, and I think that one of the reasons for that is, in a way, Power Crept 4-cost Zoro, a card that's already seems kind of broken. A 4-cost 6,000 power character, which on your turn on play, if your leader is Kid Pirates, you may add one life card, or add one card from the top of your deck to your life, and trigger if the opponent has 3 or less life, play this card. So a bit of a Kikunojo and 4-cost Zoro hybrid, but you only get the +1 life if you play this card on your turn.
Yeah, thank God that your turn is there, because it would be disgustingly broken if that your turn was not there. But yeah, I think it's really good. It helps out your curve. It goes even. And like adding a life is basically a draw two in my eyes, because one, you're getting a life, and then two, you're eating an attack off of life. So you're basically netting a 2-card advantage. What do you think of it?
I think I was initially underrating this card because the more I think about it, the more disgusting it looks. Like it's good on curve, but it can also do the same thing that yellow decks do with Zoro now, which is like Borsalino Zoro. But now you do it without any hand discard. You just spend 2 cards from hand, gain 2 life, like, and a blocker and 2 6K bodies. Like it adds to aggression really nicely, but it also like it's so good defensively. Like the discard, I have to test Yellow Kid ASAP. Like I definitely underestimated this card, but only now did I really like start thinking about its applications and even in late game. Because having a counterless card that's good in both early and late game it goes a long way, especially with a good stat line.
Yeah. And like basically, although only Yellow Kid can use this card because it's leader lock 2 Kid Pirates, because of your leader effect, being able to make one of your Supernova characters a blocker, it basically just is a cheaper 5-cost Borsalino that can be played with no condition of needing 2 or less life. So, I mean, I think just this card alone probably makes Yellow Kid extremely tanky. Just being able to have like a ton of blockers and also a ton of healing. I'm worried that that might turn into the deck just becoming like heal slop. Hopefully it doesn't end up happening, but there are some pretty good triggers and some very defensive effects. One of which is the new 6-cost Eustace Captain Kid. A 6-cost 7,000 power character, which on the opponent's attack once per turn, you may turn one of your life cards. Oh, wait, sorry. Jesus Christ, it's such a long effect.
I was just looking, how much text is that, man?
Yeah, it's like I made it big on my screen. There's like 2 paragraphs. You may turn one card from the top or bottom, interesting, of your life cards face down. Change the target of that attack to one of your Eustace Captain Kids with a base power of 5,000 or more. Then activate main once per turn. You may turn one of your cards from the top or bottom of your life face up. Give up to 1 Residong to your leader. There's a couple things going on in this card. I think the second part of the effect does potentially help out a different leader. But Revoy, how do you feel about this card in general?
I like that they're keeping in with the magnetic theme of Kid.
I was about to mention that too.
Yeah, yeah. He's not a blocker, but he just redirects attacks, which actually can like reap very big benefits when you play down the 8-cost kill later. The only part I kind of don't like is the don't attach part does have anti-synergy with with green kid. With yellow kid. But yeah, I'm not sure which leader Kai is thinking. Maybe green yellow law. Is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
green yellow.
Dude, but then he has so many 6 costs now. But we're thinking about. But yeah, now we do a lot of like life flip flopping. I think this card is going to highlight one of the kid's weaknesses, which is board removal, because he's a 6 cost. So like vulnerable to stuff like Jozo Gravity Blade and so on. And also to like everything NL likes to do to board pieces. But it does look like a good piece of support. Like just don't manipulate life manipulation, redirecting attacks. Like if you play 8 cost kid after this, you're effectively blocking 9k twice with leader and this combined, so it cannot be that bad.
Yeah, like you said, on curve, it's a blocker twice, basically, or 7k blocker twice is pretty good. The cool thing about this is you can turn your top or your bottom of your life. I don't think we've had cards that can turn the bottom of your life face up or face down. So I'm not sure if that's information you want to give your opponent, but having that information yourself can help you make plays, especially if there's cards that like can manipulate your life by moving it around, or if you choose to take the bottom on top of your life like Hiyori, if you play that in his deck. I'm not sure you do, but being able to check your bottom of your life is a cool new kind of feature.
Yeah, I actually noticed that for the first time while I was reading it, as you probably noticed. But being able to flip the bottom of your life helps with some of the anti-synergy problems with the deck, where a lot of times, you need to flip over your life face up to turn a character into a blocker. But if you have the ability to, for example, through your other effects, turn your top life face up, with this effect, turn it face down, but with the activate main, turn your bottom life face up, for example, then you can still get that dual attachment, for example, without actually working against your leader ability, because you'll still have that top life, importantly, still face down for your leader effect. So I think just being able to manipulate the status of your life cards with this card, even though the second part of the effect is rather minimal, just being able to, flip it right side up, use your effect to flip it upside down, and be able to manipulate it with your leader effect in a way that you weren't really able to before, I think just makes the deck a lot more comfortable to use. And then, like you guys are mentioning, being able to redirect not just into this card, but the 8 cost kid, and in some extenuating circumstances, the leader as well, because it's named Eustace Kid, can open up some pretty interesting possibilities for the deck, and definitely makes it very, very tanky.
Cool card. Good overall.
I guess
for
it
the deck.
also acts. It can also act as Shirahoshi support, no? Because you can kind of double body like the same as you would with the. I'm forgetting which Neptune it is, but you can play this, use the effect, flip your bottom face up, and then attach onto Shirahoshi, and then Shirahoshi, flip top life face up. Like that there could be something there as well, given he's a 6/7. Like that's a good enough stat line to like survive along the Neptunians.
Yeah, no, that's true. And plus, the first part of the effect is basically generic. Just as long as you have a face-up life, you can redirect and attack into the skid. So might not actually be that bad in Shirahoshi, just being able to manipulate the status of your dong, even or status of your life, even though you're going to be attaching a dong to a leader that can't attack. So something to consider for sure. And this leader is also going to be a benefactor of consistency as well, because we have the 1 cost Bartolomeo. 1 cost 2000 power character with 1000 counter, and on play you may trash one supernova type character or type card from your hand and draw 2 cards. Which is very similar to the Colby, but a little bit less generic, not a blocker. Do you feel like it's as universally usable as the Colby seems to be, Hervoya?
For sure. I think the people who celebrated the most when they saw this card were green yellow law players, because that deck is notorious for having difficulty in filtering out the counterless cards, and this is now a very cheap way to do it. Like, and you can recycle it, reuse it. Obviously, I think it'll find a good home there, but it's also just good enough to be used in Kid, because I'm sure at some point you draw too many of the killers, too many of the 6 and 8 cost kids. So yeah, I mean, this is just like your ideal Banquas, because as Jackson was pointing out earlier with Kinemon, it cannot whiff.
Which do you guys prefer, though? Do you guys prefer the 1 cost that searches 5, or the ones that trash 1 draw 2?
I prefer just drawing cards. personally. Like, I mean, searching cards. If your entire deck, like, you can never miss, then like, sure, searching is probably going to generally be better. But like, just generally drawing cards. I think just especially for me, I love filtering cards out of my hand. So like, a lot of the times when you have bricks and stuff in your hand, and you're playing, for example, like Green Bonnie back in the day, you just had.
That's a Havori flashing his Altar Bonk lane saying he prefers to draw cards.
Yeah, but like one of the things that I hate the most about green is that a lot of times if you draw your random tech cards that are counterless, you're just stuck with them in your hand for the rest of the game. Whereas one of the amazing things about Sakazuki or Ime or like a lot of the recent decks is the ability to filter. And this card just being able to trash one card to draw two, I think is really nice.
Yeah, this also potentially allows you to run a lot more like tech events. Like for example, you can run like a radio knife and room in green yellow wall, and just not be afraid of breaking when you cannot spend the Dawn on them or leave the Dawn open. You can just like filter them out and bounce this guy back to hand, and like he's gonna do the job. And also, just by being a cheap yellow supernova, he helps stuff like the Wankos Bartolomeo. That's a conditional blocker.
Yeah, just really cool card. A lot of these cards are like overlapping with helping the yellow lost starter deck too, but I think that might be intentional. But yeah, overall, good consistency piece, like very welcome addition.
Yeah. And yeah, we have two more cards. We're almost at the end here with the start decks. I forget what either of these cards do, so I'm just gonna go with the first one, which is Cavendish. It's really nice art. 3 cost, 3,000 power, 2,000 counter. On KO, you may trash one card from your hand and add one card to the top of your deck to your life. Which, with your leader effect, I mean, it's a blocker, basically.
Yeah, it's a blocker that basically heals for one, which is okay. I mean, it's a 2K counter, and like I would never like not consider 2K counter. I don't know if it moves the needle that much in this deck, but since this deck is very catered towards burning your opponent's life, getting them to take as much life as possible, I don't like it when it tries to become a stall deck.
It does have the stat line to dodge like most of the removal. Like it's 3 cost, it's 3,000 power, so like he's not gonna get incidentally removed by some bottom deck effect unless the opponent specifically has an option for this. But yeah, I think his main upside is the fact that he is a 2K. But I mean, Yellow Kid probably has space for him, even though the other 2K in the starter is way better, in my
We
opinion.
need less heal cards. I'm tired of yelling, getting so many heal cards.
Dude, it feels like every single set yellow gets a heal card that's cheaper and cheaper. We thought that 6 cost Kuma was crazy, and now we have this.
Or Selena, which is like way better.
Yeah. But let's look at the other 2K now, because I do not remember what this does. Hervoya has got me excited for it. A 4 cost 4,000 power, 2,000 counter, which does not have a standard effect, but only has a trigger. You draw one card, then your leader with the supernova type becomes 7,000 base power. Okay, that is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, San Juan.
This is like that meme, that Scooby Doo meme where you unmask San Juan or Apu, and underneath is just San Juan Wolf. This is exactly like it, where it draws a card and becomes 7K leader.
The most painful part of it is like Kid plays 7 cost law, places this in life, flips this law as a blocker. If you attack life, he becomes 7K. Like, okay, thanks for playing.
That's so true, man. I wish this was San Juan Wolf. So much better, so much better than mine. Yeah. This card's very good, and being able to plant it as well. I feel like building this deck's going to be pretty difficult. You have a lot of supernova cards randomly in yellow now. So, a lot of stuff to consider. You definitely run the Apu, but, for example, Purple Yellow Shinante, even before OP16 was cutting out that 7 cost law. But, I mean, in Kid, it heals 1 life and is a blocker. So, just another stall tool, kind of like the 6 cost Kid, just another way to stop 2 attacks at once. So, I mean, it's something to consider for sure.
And then the mental damage you have when you reveal your bottom life with like your kid, and then it's the first turn in the game and you reveal it, and then it says Apu, and it's like, all right, I'm taking all my life.
Yellow Kid reevaluating the cards now that the entire set is out, or the entire card list is out. Yellow Kid looks pretty solid to me, but I'm unfortunately not been able to test it at all yet. But still, that is finally we've gotten through all of the leaders. Just to kind of review Red, we talked about Red Green Luffy being the winner of that. Green Mihawk the big winner. Blue Kuzang very promising. Very promising. Purple Katakuri not as much. Red Black Sabo a big mystery, and Yellow Kid promising on paper, but we don't really have the data to really talk about that confidently quite yet. Are there any decks that we missed? Any sort of surprise picks that might be able to use these cards? And moreover, what decks do you feel like might actually end up becoming staples within the meta once these start decks actually come out?
Oh man, I don't know if I want that on record because then when I'm completely wrong, people can just refer back to this.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm kidding, but outside of the decks, I think we talked about everything. Like, there's a lot of like side grades that a lot of decks got, even though they weren't the main purpose of this. But in terms of like what can be mainstays, I think for me, the green ones and the yellow ones are definitely like at least like tier 2. So they might not define the meta like Blue Dofi did when that was released. I think they have a good chance of like kind of replicating that success where it could push one of the older leaders into like tier 1 status. What do you think, everybody?
Yeah, I'm expecting green, blue, and yellow to be the ones to actually enter the fray and be relevant at the highest levels of competition. I wouldn't be surprised if something else sneaks in. Like, obviously, RG Luffy, I think, is going to have a much better standing, and maybe, who knows, the Red Black Sabo is good enough. But I think, in general, people are overreacting to the amount of like low-cost unit hate. I don't think Enel and Goofy will be that easily removed from the meta just due to how flexible their curve is, to how many options to play cards they have. So I wouldn't expect too much shift in the meta. Maybe I would expect like some of the current yellow favorite decks to fall off a little bit, just because, I mean, it depends how much each of these decks ends up being relevant. But for example, Nami, I would expect her to not do well into pretty much any of the buffed good starter decks we talked about. Rosinante as well, like Searchable Gravity Blade in Kuzan, the Lunas in Mihawk. I'm not sure, maybe he can match up well in 2K just off of his pace alone. But even that, actually no, he should do well in 2K now I think about it. Like, he has board removal, which I imagine Kid will struggle with. But yeah, as I said, like the 3 obvious strong starter decks seem strong, and then the rest will depend on like all the testing and surprises we can dig up. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's new tier 1 decks.
Yeah, I mean, I really want Green Blue Luffy to die, and I'm looking at all these cards that seem like they're meant to kill the deck. But I know that deck's very, very resilient, so I can only pray. Yeah, I think if we're just talking about decks that seem to have a shot into Green Blue Luffy, I mean, all these decks have some tools, but interestingly, Yellow Kid that we just talked about, though it doesn't have great ways to deal with these smaller characters, the 6-cost Kid being able to redirect attacks, even into this 7,000 power Kid, can deal with 2 6,000 power attacks in Green Blue Luffy, which is somewhat relevant, especially because it's going to be free just by flipping over your life, whereas for Teach you have to trash cards to get that redirect. So I definitely can see Kid potentially holding its own into Luffy, just if you can manage to deal with some of those annoying smaller characters that he has at his disposal. But, you know, maybe Apu is going to be the savior of that matchup.
Yeah, I think yellow always has kind of anytime a yellow leader gets out, I think you have to look at it like it's actually stronger than the support that just came out, just because it has some absurd cards. Porcelino especially, that's one card that I can see getting banned in the future just because it's so efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think regardless of the actual meta standing of Yellow Kid, he'll be the leader that people are most frustrated to play against, because he is probably just going to be even more like stick to curve and play your pieces and then have some very annoying things come out of life. Whereas something like Kuza and Mihawk, it does still require like more of a navigating game plan as the game goes on and using, for Kuzan the right discards, for Miho resting the right stuff and developing in the correct order. Whereas Kid, it will probably feel a lot more random to people to play against it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely imagine the Twitter posts in a couple of months from now or next month when these start decks come out of people complaining about Kid going 4-cost killer, 6-cost Kid, 8-cost Kid on curve with no searchers. So yeah. And then to top it all off, they're probably going to double Borsalino at the end too. So excited for that. And in any case, though, I hope that these leaders shake up the meta a little bit because I'm already trying to get into Op17, but we're just waiting on those those leaks now. Well, if you guys have no other thoughts on these leaders, then we can start to wrap up then. But you guys are pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'll just do an outro then, which I'm generally bad at, but okay. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the All Blue. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe. Also, of course, I'll put Jackson's socials in the description below. Excellent player. If you enjoyed him, maybe we'll have him on as well as a recurring special guest. Thank you, of course, for joining at such short notice because Jonas got Deutschbanned, unfortunately. So appreciate you coming here, brought a new atmosphere to the podcast as well, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks for joining us, Jackson. Bye.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay.